Hello, welcome to this video. I am absolutely honored to have a legend of not just jazz, pop music, rhythm, blues, rock. We have a musician that it's pointless trying to explain what this guy's done. Hello, Jason Miles. How are you? And welcome to the channel.
Thank you. Appreciate you asking me to do this.
I feel honored to be able to talk to you. You've played with everybody, haven't you? Really, from
Everybody, well, I haven't played with Paul McCartney or the Rolling Stones, but I mean important names. I would say yes, I've worked with important names on all different kinds of levels.
But you've been close to Paul McCartney because I believe you worked on the History album with Michael Jackson. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He does crop up on that album, doesn't he?
Okay, there you go. Well, then you can say, a lot of people say, what they've been associated with, even though it was from a distance, it I guess is reality that you wouldn't be lying if you said that.
Yeah. So I caught you out there. So so you work with Michael Jackson, Aretha Franklin, you work with Miles Davis, Michael Brecker, you work with a whole host of people, and I do want to delve into that. But what I am very interested about is what you're actually doing at the moment.
Well, at the moment, I mean, we decided to make a humongous change, and move over here. And at the moment, I'm just trying to slowly build my way into the scene here in Europe. It's not something that, that I'm like, pounding the pavement on all the time. I want to just be patient and see if things can grow. I've come over here for a couple of reasons. One, I can still continue things that I did in the United States, like I'm writing my second book right now, and continuing that. And then I'm also preparing. I've got years and years of archived music that I'm trying to get out there, that I'm talking to different people about, and so that's on that level. So that wouldn't matter where I live, But as far as I've put together now, after doing a tour in September, I did my first tour in September and played in like Serbia, Paris, Brussels, and Milan, and that went really, really well. And then I wanted to just see that, that maybe I don't want to try to outreach all over the place to try to find the musicians. And so I was very lucky that when I came here, I just met the best guys immediately. And I've met a few guys that are just phenomenal musicians, and I'm going to try to build the Lisbon Electric Quartet, and playing my kind of new project and Miles to Miles and all of these different things that I've done, as well as hopefully in a space develop some new music as well. I mean, I'm here to also celebrate 50 years of doing this in the music world, and try to bring my history over here to show people just what it is that I've done, and why I believe some of the music, it's not only my music, of course, but other music that I've done is important. When I play live, I add that in the set also, just to show the influences and what the possibilities are. So, I'm doing little solo shows that I really like. I talk about this book I wrote, The Extraordinary Journey of Jason Miles, a musical biography. The show is based on the book, and I play all these different songs that are like my favorites, that have stories to them, songs that I've been involved in, and I tell the stories of, like, meeting Miles for the first time, what it was like making Tutu, how I got the love affair with Yvonne Lynn's project going. These are complex stories that are just not like, so many people think it's so funny just the way it is. Well, he came to New York and met a couple of people and he's working with Miles, I mean, having people realize that it's just not like that, and that there's years of struggle and years of disappointment and years of, trying to find your way in a scene that is just so complex but so intense, that finding your space in it and seeing if you belong in it, and then figuring out what you had to do to make it so you're not everybody else. And I was lucky that I figured that out, and you don't realize it until you see it happen in front of you. And so many different situations that happen. Like in my book, I talk about, the most important night of my life, in my musical life, basically was January 24th, 1984. And what happened with, if you don't mind me keeping on riffing.
No, it's brilliant. I'm just listening.
Okay. my wife's birthday. Things weren't going incredibly well. We really had some beautiful music, but we had trouble getting this off the ground and everything like that. My lawyer wasn't helping, all of this shit. And it was her birthday, and I said, "Come on, I want to take you out to a place. Where you want to go?" She wanted sushi, of course, in New York. So we went to our favorite sushi place, and it was freezing, and it was empty. Nobody was there except all the way at the end, the long sushi bar. There was one guy sitting there. I didn't pay attention. So we're eating, and Kathy looks over to me and says to me, "I'm looking at the guy at the end of the sushi bar. That's Michael Brecker." And I said, "That is Michael Brecker." And I hadn't seen Michael in 2 years. And it's no secret to talk about this, that Michael had drug problems, and he was out of rehab now for a bit. And I hadn't seen him in a while. He had played on my very first album that I made called Cosmopolitan. And, we see each other over the years, but I was in a different direction. I was doing synthesizers and keyboards. I wasn't totally immersing myself in jazz. I was doing a lot of synth pop back then, using my Oberheim system and drum machines. I was really at the very cutting edge of that whole thing, sampling, FM synthesis, this was my groove, and digging jazz at the same time, which was kind of wild,
Mm.
So I walk over and I say, "Hi," I say, "Mike, hey, oh my God, Jay," call me Jay, what's going on, man? I'm so happy to see you, man. I'm so happy you look okay, because I can't believe that I was thinking about you last week. I'm going, really? Because yes, I was thinking that if anybody knew what was happening with MIDI keyboards and synthesizers and all this stuff, it had to be you. I know you know what's going on. I go, yeah, I'm right in the middle of the whole thing. He goes, oh my God, I so want to get into that. And I was like, really? Wow, what a surprise. He goes, yes, I'm thinking about a whole other thing. I said, well, come on and have dinner with Kathy and I. It's your birthday. Oh, really? Okay, came down. Hi, Kathy. How, sit down, had a great conversation. Was having trouble finding the synthesizer, DX7, which nobody could find. But I had one of the first ones in the country. And I had a friend who had a music store that was paying off Yamaha to get them to his store. Yeah, here's 50,000 in advance, send me DX7. So, oh, you got him, man, So I knew that he had a couple stashed away. And I told Michael, I'll get you one. But come on, I'll get you one, Kathy. Of course he's going to get you one. So anyway, a couple days later, I got it, bring it over to his house. And he's like, Jay, this is great. What I started to realize was that all the people that he was hanging out with in the past, he could not hang around with them anymore. That's over. So that scene is over with him, man. He's in a whole new world now of what his life is and what he has to do. And so we started hanging out a lot. And he was always telling me, your music is like incredible. You're doing great stuff, man. Really? You like this synth pop shit? With everything. I'm doing different singers. And, yeah, man. Oh, it's happening, Okay, so he gets this instrument, the Iwi. Meanwhile, I'm starting to get like some calls and everything, from people. Okay, wow, that's good. I got a good gig here, that's nice. All right. And then one night in like June of 1984, he called me and said, hey, tomorrow we're going to Europe and everything, but we're hanging out tonight at this place, man, and Bob Mintzer's playing, and you should come down, man. I'm going, okay. We live 50 miles from the city. Kathy was in Indiana visiting her family. So I went into the city, and there was, Mike at the club, man. But I also learned this. You don't take up the time of those people all the time. What they give you, you go for, you make it great and everything like that. And that's what it was. So I'm going to go hear some music, man, because people coming up, oh, Mike, what's happening, man, And so anyway, next thing you know, I'm sitting there listening to Bob Mintzer, and all the New York guys are there. All the hip New York guys are there at the club, because people were going to European festivals, and Bob had a very hip band, and he was one of the guys, And so the next thing I know, I see Mike at the bar. He's talking to Lenny White. So I just turn around, thinking, okay. But I see Mike like pointing over there at the room. Okay, the next thing you know, somebody's tapping me on my shoulder. And he goes, hey, man, Lenny White, what's going on, man? We kind of sort of knew each other, but he goes, hey, man, so who are your favorite producers, man? Who are your favorite producers? And he goes, well, my guy that I look towards everything, that's Trevor Horn. And he was like, oh, we got to work together, man. We have to work together. Really, art of noise, right? He goes, oh, we have to really work together. We got to do something, man. I go, yeah, I got all those, but that's my stuff. I'm really into that. So anyway, we kind of connected a few times, but then one night in January 1985, early, he calls me up late Sunday night on a Sunday night. He said, hey, man, did you hear from Marcus Miller? I'm going, no, I haven't heard from him. Anyway, he's going to get a hold of you, man. We're doing something new. And I told him, we got to bring you in the studio, man. You know, he goes, really? He goes, yeah, we got to get Jay in here with us. So so I tried Marcus, and of course, joking around, everything. Tried at like 10 o'clock at night. He was on the phone till like 2:30 in the morning. No call forwarding, no anything like that. Busy signal. He was probably on the phone with one of his girlfriends or something for 4 hours. Sunday night in January. So anyway, the next morning he calls me and asked me to come down to the studio. And I said sure. And we started working on this project called Jamaica Boys. And I brought all my cool shit, my PPG Wave Point 2 with the Wave Terminal. And I had, with DX7 with Oberheim synth and this and that and some other stuff. And we started doing the stuff. And they were like, going, wow, this is sounding really good. And from that day on, for 10 years, I worked with Marcus on all of his projects. So you see how the line goes backwards.
Yeah.
You trace the dots backwards. And that was a big break. And then, of course, we ended up doing David Sanborn, getting a feel for each other. We did Chicago Song and that whole stuff. And some Jamaica Boys record we did also. And then all of a sudden, Marcus had the opportunity to do this stuff with Miles. And he called me up and said, look, I got these ideas, man. They told me the whole story about Warner Brothers and Miles and everything and Tommy LaPuma. So we went down, and the next thing you know, he gets the gig. Now here I am in my dream working with Miles. But, I always said this. Chick Corea came to New York in 1959, okay? He came to New York, Chick Corea. Who gives a shit about Chick Corea? Who the hell is he? You know what I mean? So then 1968, Chick Corea, Bitches Brew, 1969, oh my God, Chick's on Silent, all this other stuff, you know what I mean? But what was he doing for like 8 years? You think it was like so easy? You know what I mean? It was like, the New York Scuffle. He's playing with them. He got some good gigs, Sarah Vaughan and this and Mongo Santa Maria and different things like that. It's never easy. It's always a journey, a real slog. Some people haven't had to go through that, in their own way they have, but maybe not. But I had to go through many different scenes to get to it. And
you would have been in your 30s at this point, wouldn't you? So
I was in my 30s, and things were going okay, ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs, but it wasn't ready. The scene wasn't ready for me in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't thinking like everybody else. Look, there's keyboard players with synthesizers, and then there's keyboard players that know how to use synthesizers. And I was an expert programmer. And what Marcus needed was an expert programmer because he had the ideas. Marcus will play a chord. You know what I mean? And you think, oh, yeah, what's the big deal? Then 2 seconds later, you're looking at that is a weird thing, man. But it fits right into the music, and then you got to figure, wow. He's adjusting those chords to the sound that I'm doing this. And all of a sudden we become one. You know what I mean? We become this like fine-tuned groove, fine-tuned machine of like what you need to get to that place and how can I give you that to get to there. And that's basically what we were.
I've always thought that with the jazz scene and the fusion scene, the labels obviously changed in the late 70s, and they wanted to move towards a more pop R&B sound. And I've spoken to a lot of musicians. I did an interview with Narada Michael Walden, and he was making fusion albums, and then suddenly the record label turns around to him and says, we need a hit, you're gonna have to start making some songs, so he's one of those guys that seemed to have an insight into the new sound that was happening in the 1980s. And it seems with you that you really cornered the market for that, because those artists would sink or swim on how authentic and close to the street sounds of pop music, R&B at the time. You could see that happening. The guys that got it right. And a lot of jazz musicians, they didn't get it so right, did they? So do you feel like
they weren't spending the time? Well, they weren't spending the time to know what it was, to hear. When somebody said something to me, and somebody like a producer, Marcus's communication skills were very, very good. Some producers weren't as good, and I got around it. You know what I mean? By trial and error. But Marcus's communication skills were very good. So he would tell me, with the chords where they're going around, I need something where there's like some movement in this. So when you just hear in the chord, it's kind of like, oh, okay. Well, in my mind, I know how to get that. And I also knew that, that some of the stuff that I was doing, I had to take a back seat too, you know. And let's, you know, in the 80s when I was doing, I was producing some artists and building myself up as a producer and a songwriter and with that. But when I started working and started getting these big calls and big stuff, that's, you know, I had to make a decision. Am I going and still pursuing that, or am I going in this direction and putting that to the side a bit and going here and taking the journey? You know, maybe it's easier taking the journey and learning along the way, because now all of a sudden I'm in with the best producers in the world and the best musicians in the world, you know, who I still knew, but I'm now in a different space and they see me on these things, man, and they're going, wow, Jason's making a difference here, man, you know, and your name starts to spread in that kind of place. You know, at the same point, wanting to be a producer, that wasn't helping me, you know, that was helping me being like, you know, like somebody in my stature, but I had to start from scratch as a producer. And some people, you know, I can't go, well, I've done this record and that record and this record and that record. And by the time 1991 came, I'm on like 90 albums and everything, you know. And, you know, and somebody said, yes, but you weren't a producer on that. So I had to like start from scratch and do that. But we were pretty skilled songwriters, my wife and we were building things from there. And I got some opportunities to at least start to get my thing built, which was important. I got a huge project in 1993 to do the UN 50th anniversary music. There was an album with all these pictures. What happened? I had a great Rolodex there. And so I could call up anybody and they were going, oh, yeah, man, of course I'll do it. Because they were in the studio with me before and I wasn't some stranger and they knew how I was. And so, you know, you take this journey and, you know, Marcus wrote about it in my book. He wrote the forward to the book and he said, hey, Jay had the front row seat, you know. I had the front row seat to the whole scene.
But why? Well, I mean, obviously you're a highly skilled keyboardist. You come up through the 70s with that fusion thing going on. I'm sure you were influenced by all the usual sort of keyboardists that are around then. What happened with you that gave you that sort of special insight into this thing that was going on in the 80s with sampling, sequencing, and synthesis programming?
The fascination with the instruments and the early adaptation of the instruments. When I was in college in 1972, I was walking by the music hall and I heard a sound coming out of there. And I'm going, wow, that's interesting. Nobody was there. It was in the afternoon. And it was like, okay. I walked in and I see a guy standing on stage. There's this little thing in the stage from the back. I walk up down the aisle and I go up there. I look at the stage and I go, hey, wow, what is that? And he goes, this is something that I invented. It's called the Mini Moog synthesizer. And I was like, wow, yes. And you were, I'm Robert Moog. And I go, wow, that is amazing. Yeah, come on up. And he started showing me it and everything. And I was like, wow. And I said, I got to get into this thing, you know? And then all of a sudden, you know, you start hearing the music. I heard Switched on Bach in that Clockwork Orange, the sound with Wendy Carlos, Walter Carlos at that point, you know? And you're looking and it's like, wow, man, you know, these are something else. Then you hear, you know, the sound that first got everybody going. And with me was the Fender Rhodes. But it was the Fender Rhodes, you know, the way that people, the great ones, knew how to express it and not sound like everybody's playing the same thing. You know, I had 5 guys, you know, Zavinul and Chick, Herbie, George Duke, and, you know, Jan Hammer, Joe Sample. These were guys that really understood and got their own sound out of the instrument, you know. And I started like listening back to that and, you know, getting into that and understanding, well, man, look, and then of course, Joe Zawinul, he took it to the greatest place of hooking up the wah-wah pedal and the phase shifter and the ring modulator and, you know, bringing that whole thing together in Weather Report. And I got to meet Joe when I came back to New York very early on, and we became kind of friends and everything. And I turned him on to a very, very high-tech piece of gear that my neighbor invented. And all of a sudden, it was like, wow, man, Jalen's what's going on here, you know? And I met him at a club one night. It was crazy. I'm writing about it in my new book, so I don't want to go and put the whole story out there. But it's an amazing story. It's funny as hell. And, you know, so I heard it in the sound. Headhunters was a big influence on me, too, you know? Headhunters was a big influence on me.
And Herbie was one of those keyboardists early on to bring in someone specifically to program because he had Patrick Gleason. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, Patrick was the Apocalypse Now. You know what I mean? You know, but even back in '74, Patrick was on something else that was really different. You know, he was onto something pretty amazing. And Herbie, though, Herbie had a style, you know, that he understood how to switch it over. That's the thing about Herbie that's so brilliant, you know. He was able to switch it over from jazz to electric, from jazz to electric, and he even got caught in the whole record company making more commercial shit, you know, which those records I did not like that much at all, you know, those R&B kind of commercial things. But then when he came out with Mr. Hands, my faith in Herbie rekindled, you know. We're like Chick was always on like the other extreme, you know what I mean by, you know, so much virtuosity. And I don't believe that Return to Forever was about the amazing sounds that like Weather Report was putting out there, you know. Like Zawinul truly was probing synthesizers, you know. Chick was probing sounds as notes and everything, like, you know, and that was right. Jan Hammer, the same thing. Jan Hammer went and got into the tones and the synths and everything for all the stuff that he did, you know. And not everybody was as creative, but I think Joe was a huge influence on me
I think
with Weather.
for me, Jan Hammer and Joe Zawinul were the two real pioneering and keyboardists in terms of synthesis. That first 7 Days album that
Yeah,
that he
amazing.
made in '75 is incredible. Where he's playing
Yeah.
everything. The tones are incredible.
So
So you mentioned that Apocalypse Now soundtrack. That I think that's one of the great electronic music soundtracks.
oh,
Get the
me too. And I
credit.
just watched the movie. Yeah, I just
Yeah.
watched the movie again, and I was like, yeah, man, Patrick killed this shit, man. It was like, just, you know, wow. But then, no, but then you look and you just see, you know, I I just, you know, look at things a different way, you know. Like right now, you know, I said a lot of stuff on synthesizers, and I haven't been at that place where like what I'm doing is like, you know, when you hear my stuff, I really have my Rhodes thing in the computer happening in a different way now, you know, using the effects to create this and create that, and taking my sound, you know, a company. I didn't have all my stuff here for 8 months. You know, it was rough, but I had the Numa GTX keyboard, which was really great. I was practicing hours and hours a day here, waiting for my stuff to show up. And when it did, I missed this thing of this instrument that came out. I'm not going to get into it and everything, you know. But um, and so I wanted me to do some programs, and I couldn't do it. So when I came back and said I could do the programs, I was like, oh, man, it's too late now and everything like that. But, you know, just give it a free trial, see if you like it and everything. So I listened back to the instrument. I thought, this thing is really good. You know, it really is. And I started listening to their sounds that people were giving them. And I was like, you know, I'm sorry I'm so critical, you know, but it's like, yeah, all right, you know, nothing great that I would really, you know, because maybe 2 sounds out of 100, you know, that I like, you know, from different people. Oh, he's this, he's that, you know, and everything. So I did 5 sounds, you know, for them. And I said, here's some sounds. Tell me what you like. Maybe you'll let me, you know, get a better price on it and everything like that. So like 2 days later, I get an email. Jason, we would be very proud to give you a free copy of our instrument, you know, because I know what I do is different than what everybody else has. And then when they hear my sounds, they know. I'm releasing my first set of sounds for the sequential Oberheim OB6. January 11th is coming out. And I did 100 set of custom programs here, and we'll see how they go. But even the company that's putting it, these are freaking great, you know. But that's one of my things, you know. And I think the thing that I stress is how much hard work I put into practicing to be the best keyboard player I can. Am I Chick or something like that? No, but I seem to be playing these solo gigs, and everybody thinks I'm doing really good. So, you know, I'm playing with the band. The band thinks, man, you play some funky shit. You know what I mean? And I've always stayed in my lane, understanding what my lane is. You know what I mean? And understanding about what it is you need, that you just need to create your own character, and not, you know, and not be somebody else's character, you know. And so writing and arranging and everything, I've put so much time into learning Pro Tools, learning this, you know what I mean? I put so much time into, you know, creating a vibe for myself, you know. And well, now that I feel that I'm over here, you know, I have a bucket list over here, you know. And, you know, coming over here, it just wasn't the right musical atmosphere in the United States for me at this point. It really wasn't. They don't appreciate the same kind of legacy vibe, and especially the electric instrument thing now, because that's my thing, you know. I play electric. If I do solo, I play solo piano. I love it. You know, I listen to Bill Evans. I listen to McCoy. I listen to young cats, Aaron Parks, and some other guys I think are really, Benny Green, really good. You know what I mean? But I find my own way in there. You know, but when I play my electric stuff, you know, I know that I'm going and doing something that's unique to me. You know, my solo stuff comes in with my stories, so I can tie everything together. You know, and not charge a lot of money or something like that. You know, and by the electric stuff comes into like, this is me, this is my vibe that I'm putting out there. You know, so my thing is trying to come over here and play at the best festivals now, and you know, come back to the UK and do another gig in Ronnie Scott's or the Jazz Love Supreme thing. And this is what I'm really, my goals now, you know?
Yeah, I really want to get onto that, but I think, you know, before we get there,
Sure.
this tantalizing story you tell of, you know, getting the call for Marcus to go and work on a Miles Davis album. And it's not just a Miles Davis album, is it?
No,
Because
it's two.
Miles had
Yeah,
left CBS and he
right.
was moving to Warner Brothers. That was a big deal. And I can remember at the time, there was a big thing about this new Miles Davis album, and it delivered. It came out and was a market change for him. And I felt it changed the sound of not just jazz fusion, but the whole pop thing. So can you give us a bit of a background of, you know, especially with the label change and what Miles was after when he brought you in and the whole.
Well, Marcus brought me in,
Yeah.
you know, like one of the reasons why I felt, you know, and this is deep inside, and you know, we never got a real chance to talk about it. Although Marcus and I reunited at the North Sea Jazz Festival last summer and spent an hour together on stage being interviewed about our 10 years together, which was a lot of fun and really, you know, a good piece of, just a good way to, you know, get the record straight, get stuff great, which I set the record straight in my book because of all the stories you hear about Tutu. Just to say, people come to me, well, what happened to all those extra tracks? And, you know, you cut this. And I was told that he played on 3 different songs. Excuse me, where the fuck are you getting this shit from, man?
Well, that's how we hooked up, because you came on my channel and said, "Oh, what are you going on about this album being cut together?" Which I'd used the wrong words really. It was more just the fact that Miles was really using the technology of the time and all that type of stuff.
Yes. Well. What the story is that, look, man, you know, I don't think Miles was happy on Columbia. Those were cool records he made. They were cool records. Decoy, you know, and Star People, and there's some good stuff, man, you know, but it's not the Miles groundbreaking. You know what I mean? But it's Miles putting some stuff out there. You feel he's trying to find his way on that stuff. And the music is good. Schofield, Bob Berg, you know, Mike Starr, you know, Alpha, you know, come on, man, you know what are you talking about? But Tommy LaPuma, who's a very savvy guy, you know, he was looking at something, man, and he saw the opportunity, and he bought Miles out of that contract for a lot of money, and so they start making this project, and you know, and Tommy writes it in the Miles book. I think, you know, they start doing this project, and Tommy's like, stop, I do not like this stuff. I don't like this music. I don't want it to continue anymore, you know. And so after cutting a number of tracks, Tommy put the kibosh on it, man, and said, I got to start from scratch. And so he didn't know what to do. He was confused because, you know, you're dealing with Miles. What does Miles want? Miles wants to be in something new. He doesn't quite know how to get to that new, you know, because how did Miles get great bands? People always telling him who to get. Hey, Dave Liebman, who should I get on saxophone? Oh, you know, Bill Evans, man, this kid Bill Evans, he's great. Okay, well, Miles, you know, who the hell? Who's that guy? The other, Bill Evans. Whoa, here's Bill Evans doing his modal shit, you know. I want some of that shit, you know what I mean? What happens? Milestones, kind of blue, you know. Miles always had his ear to the ground. And I don't know whether he knew where to have his ear to the ground. But Tommy called up George Duke and said to George Duke, man, you got anything that I can play for Miles? I got something. So they went over to his house, and George played him this tune that he had. It was called Backyard Ritual. That's what they ended up calling it. But it was Miles. Well, I like that. And so then Miles came up with this, but why don't you call Marcus? Okay. So Tommy called Marcus. And, you know, Marcus immediately was saying, you know, that the minute they were talking, all of a sudden this bass line came to his mind. You know what I mean? And he was thinking about, whoa, you know, I could do, give me a couple of days. I have some ideas. And so Tommy gave him a couple of days. And I think really just, I would imagine that like as soon as they hung up the phone, he called me up, like and said, "Hey man, can you come over tomorrow and bring some keyboards and synthesizers?" And I said, "Yeah, with a month for my well, yeah, whoa, I'm there, man." So we ended up putting stuff together, and it's like Marcus had the dome. But the minute I heard that shit, I was going, Marcus, when we need something really deep and eerie, man. So I put up these voices, and all of a sudden behind the bass, like boom, 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 and I was like, whoa. And then it was like, we need to get into the song, and I go, no problem. And I started whipping out a disco orchestra hits, and wank, bop, boop, and that's what you hear on the record. You don't hear that when we're doing the demos, but it was like, all right. So we kept on moving through. We did a few demos. We sent it out to LA, Tommy. Next thing you know, bang, it's happening. And so, I sent Marcus out to LA with a whole bunch of sounds and discs, and because they didn't want to pay for me to come out, but I had him hooked up. He knew he could call me, and that I could do the show with my eyes closed and just stand in front of the instrument. We'll get there. You know what I mean? And so he was using some of the stuff that I had in my studio in New York and get on the phone. Okay, great. They paid me for all of my shit. Don't get me wrong. They just didn't want to fly me out there for a week. You know what I mean? Or actually 4 days. And then, everything's cool. Marcus would call me back. How's it going on, man? Everything's cool. We're on it, And then they came back and they just said, Marcus, we want you to do the rest of the album, after like just a few tunes he did out in LA. I want you to do the rest of the album. And so he goes, gotta do some more demos. Let's go. So we did some more demos. And next thing you know, I'm at Clinton Studios. And there is, me. So I'm going, looking in the room, and there's Miles with the horn. And I'm saying, whoa. And Marcus goes, what? Got to go in and say hi sometime, man, So I said, yeah. And he goes, well, you'll be here for 5 minutes or 5 weeks. And I said, well, he said, well, we all hope it's 5 weeks, right? Well, yes, you know what I mean? But so he knows I was going to go in there and go, Miles, hey, man, just walk in there very humbly and go, Miles, excuse me. I just wanted to introduce myself, man. My name is Jason Miles. And, I know you see the keyboards in the room and everything. That's my synthesizer setup. So, Marcus and I have been working together and everything. And I do programming for him. And, we work together on the stuff. And he looked up at me and goes to me, well, I do like your name. And I said, well, thank you very much, man. But, I'll tell you anything, you got an idea, you just come to me. You come to me, man, I will take care. Okay. I got to do no problem. I'm out. See you later, Yeah. And so like what happens is like, for a week, maybe like 3 or 4 days. Okay. He would always call me, affectionately Whitey, hey, Whitey, come in, you know what I mean? So, okay, whatever you want, it's okay. And then the track starts coming together, Full Nelson starts coming together, and this shit's like popping, man, but
it's an incredible album. I absolutely
and so what happened was that, we're doing this stuff, and all of a sudden Miles looks up and says, Jason, man, I'm gonna talk to Marcus about this part over there, then we'll talk to you. So I'm gonna call me Jason. And with all of a sudden I said, I broke through. There's no doubt about it. And he would call me into the room sometime and go. Because Marcus would be working on something, and and I'd be, go to Marcus. That sound, man. Go have him do that. Let's go. Okay, let's go, Marcus. He immediately understood what he was looking for, And then, one day, a few days in, he was drawing a little on a sketch pad. And he had a little stick figure there and everything like that. And he said, Miles, your car's outside. I said, okay, I gotta go. So he threw the pad down on the thing, and I looked at it and I said, Miles, man, I said, you're gonna either be fucking skewered or it's gonna be cool. I said, Miles, that little figure, man, it's very cool, man. Are you gonna do anything with it? He goes, oh, let's throw it away. You think I could have it? And he goes, sure, give it to me. So give it to me. And he wrote it, Miles to Miles, with a trumpet underneath him. I still have that, and from that point on, I mean, we became friends, and he respected what I was doing because I was there. I was the one creating the sound of Tutu, Marcus's music, the arrangements, my sound integrating into the whole thing, from samples to this. It wasn't like, you know, like, well, he knows how to do that over. I mean, I didn't want to do everything. I didn't know how to sample, then I could sync the stuff up to tape. Then we go this, then we build the MIDI tracks up, then we do this, then we get drum samples, then we, you know, I mean, we were like a full service kind of ninja business, Marcus and I, you know, and we built that up. And I didn't realize back then the effect that it really had. I didn't, because now people tell me over here, wow, you should have come over to Europe in '86, man. Your stuff was hot, man. That Tutu was like, you were the guy. And because when you look on the album, it was Miles Davis, Marcus Miller, and Jason Miles. And you don't get a credit like that for just, you know, hanging around. And it was really nice when I thanked Tommy so much for it. He goes, hey, you know, you deserve that, man, you know. And I was like, okay. And then from there, you know, we did music from Siesta. And then went in a whole other direction with the mandala. But Tutu definitely. Roberta Flack wrote a quote about me, and she wrote up this wonderful thing. She said, she was talking to somebody about me, and I saw it, and it's the thing I could use that, and it was like, yeah. And the end of the quote was like, Jason Miles, along with my friend Marcus Miller and Miles Davis, helped change the sound of modern jazz.
It's totally true. And I think one of the brilliant things about that album, and I realize it just chatting to you now, is that those earlier albums are great, but there's a mystique and a dark vibe around Miles Davis, and you managed to capture that on Tutu without going back to the past. It was completely cutting edge. But as soon as that first track came on, I thought, oh my God, this is Miles Davis. And you could see him walking. You could see you could see, you know, in that, you know, and you know, there's bass clarinet on there, so you get that bitches brew sound, but there's also cutting edge sounds, and it, you know, it was genius of you to be able to use the synthesis and sampling of the time to give that sound, to get that sound, because
but it was an evolution, though. It was just an evolution of what I was doing and what was available to me. When you had like a PPG Wave Point 2, like everybody was always saying to me, don't you have the chord this? No, I don't like that. Why not? You can, everybody's using it. Okay, you know what I mean? But you know, my synthesizer rig was custom to what I knew and what I was comfortable giving, and the sound that I was giving. With Luther Vandross, it was the same thing. We crossed Luther over into pop right after that, you know, because you know, Luther came up to me at the airport in Antigua and St. Martin on our way to Montserrat and said to me, you know, Jason, I know we just met, but you know, I could sell out Madison Square. I can sell out Radio City Music Hall, man, all the time, you know, but I don't want Radio City Music Hall, man. I want Madison Square Garden. I want to sell out Madison Square Garden. And I was like, wow. And he goes, I need you to help us get there. Okay. And when I was, it was a lot of pressure, man, because I was getting paid a lot of money on that. And what happened was that, you know, when I was sitting behind that board and we were listening to playback of his tune, Stop to Love, you know, and I saw the look on everybody's face, that was the crossover moment for Luther. He crossed over right there. Without the album even being that, that was going to cross him over. That was the new R&B contemporary sound with the synth bass popping, great Nat Adderley track and arrangement. You know what I mean? Marcus's production savvy and my synthesizers crossed Luther over into that. And from there, it was like no stopping. And I think I'm proud to say that when I left Luther, I don't think he ever had the same kind of success with his albums or the same kind of vibe that was coming, like with Power of Love. Or, you know, when Marcus and I were at the North Sea Jazz Festival, Ashley Kahn wanted me to create a reel of like 5-6 minutes of stuff that we did together to play. And I put together a reel, man. I got to tell you, the look on Marcus's face even after that was like, whoa, really? Man, we did that shit, huh? I'm going, yeah, we did that stuff, man. Because we did the same for Chaka Khan and same for David Sanborn, you know. And
what Chaka Khan album did you work on?
Well, first I worked on Chaka Khan. I did a tune with Scritti Politti called "The Love of a Lifetime." That was fun. That was a lot of fun. And then I did "The Woman I Am." We did 4 tracks on that, and those are the that's her best album, I think. That's a great album, and the tunes that we did were really like cutting edge. They were great. I Want and Everything Changes. I remember Telephone was one of my favorites, you know. And we were just really peaking. And then, like everything, things start to slowly move in different directions. Music doesn't stay in the same place, and people don't stay in the same place. And I needed to. Marcus wanted to move to LA. and do more films and everything. And then I wanted to go and, be a producer and put a studio in my house and, get that. And, you drift and, people would say, what happened to you guys, man? Nothing happened. You know what I mean? I had to do something he did, but then we ended up doing a few more things together. And then in 2000, believe it or not, after I got a Grammy and all that other stuff, they were doing a Luther album, and Luther asked Marcus to go and to do a song, this song. And I had this hard disk system that we were using. And, Marcus called me up, him, and you feel like working on a Luther Vandross album for a week? And I was like, yeah, why not? And now it's been producing really good stuff. And I had #1 album in Japan with Weather Report, celebrating music with Weather Report, and you just go back, because with me, it's not about ego or anything like that. It's about still just going with the accomplishment and trying to keep on accomplishing more and more on the level that you believe you're capable of accomplishing.
I'm having trouble focusing because there's so much there to talk about. So many incredible artists and some of my favorite artists. I mean, Chaka Khan is perhaps my favorite singer.
A lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Singer.
A lot of fun to work with Chaka. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I had a lot.
Phenomenal, isn't she?
Well, she also sang on some of my albums too. She sang on that UN project. I did a duet with her and Yvonne Lins of a fast samba, big vibe. And then she sang on this album To Grover with Love, which she sang Love Me Still Again. But then she sang on The Love Affair, music of Yvonne Lins. She did this great song, and she was killing, man. So we've done some stuff together. And then, you move on to another space and people know, but it's in history. It's there. It's documented.
Oh, yeah. I really wanted to talk about Siesta because
go ahead.
It's such an important album, I think, in Miles's development. I mean, people will talk about Jack Johnson. They'll talk about the Lift the Scaffold, these other soundtrack albums, and they're classic albums. But of course, Siesta was a mainstream big movie with a Miles Davis soundtrack, and I can remember watching that film. And this is where I think Miles was almost at his cultural peak, really at that point.
Yeah, but that was also Marcus. There's a reason why the album is called Miles Davis and Marcus Miller, music from Siesta. I mean, the pressure that was put on. I write about it in my new book. I have a chapter on Siesta, which I didn't cover in the first book.
Yeah. Because
I did a mandala and Miles. I've got enough Miles in this book, man. Move on to some other shit, And I'll cover Siesta some other time. But Siesta was just starting out as 3 songs. And let's get Miles on this stuff, and get Marcus to produce it, and he'll do this, and blah 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 blah. And so Marcus, calls me up, late 1986, like Christmas week, telling me the first week of January that they want to do this stuff. What do we think? So we go in there and we look at this movie, and it was so different. It was like eerie and weird, and and it was like, okay, this is just not going to be like orchestrating strings, and it's like this is going to be like almost Spanish Tutu in a movie. You know what I mean? What do we do here? And we were in there for a few days. Miles came in. We had one amazing night with Miles in New York that was just, one of those legendary nights, man. Where see, the thing about, I learned a lot from all of these people. I learned about how to read musicians and how to read the room and how to do a session and all that other stuff from working with like Marcus and Luther and Tommy LaPuma, Russ Titleman, different producers, Riju Sakamoto, all these like different kinds of people. And the night that Miles was there playing, it was a lousy night in New York, man. January, freezing, you know what I mean? But we're in the studio at Sigma South, and Miles had just gotten done doing a couple of takes, and Marcus says, "Miles, you hungry?" "Yeah, I could eat." Hey man, you want to get some ribs? And Miles said, "Yeah, that sounds good." Marcus and I didn't eat meat like that, but I had chicken. We got the barbecue stuff. We're sitting in the lounge, and he starts holding court, man, just talking about the past and New York and St. Louis and all this stuff, man. And I'm going, whoa, man, this is like freaking deep, I mean, he's really just opening up, because a small room. The beautiful thing with some of these people is in the studio sometimes when you're really creating something, the cohesiveness, when it's there, it's very tight. And we never did like sessions. we did projects, and it was a daily to daily thing to get the projects, to build it up, to keep on doing it, you know. And so you create a little community in there, you know, of what's going on, and people come in and people come out and people come in, you know. When you have this, so you're sitting in the room, and we're there with Miles, and there's just an engineer and myself, Marcus, Miles, you know, we're eating it. You know, the vibe gets looser, and the thing gets more personal. And so, you know, just hearing that, and then going back in the studio and listening to him play again with that open horn, because he played a lot of open horn on Siesta.
Yeah.
Which really great, you know, listening to that, you know. And which on Tutu, he played a lot of muted trumpet, you know. But on Siesta, he did that. And it was a lot of pressure. When we went out to LA after that to do 5 more days, and to do 7 more days, we had to do. And then at the end of the 7 days, that story nobody knows about it, but that Tommy comes in and shows up and goes, yo, guys, we got to finish this Benson Klug album. There's 2 more songs, and Marcus, you got to finish these songs. So the last night of Siesta, which are totally fried. I mean, we're sitting there like looking like a zombie, really. And we were working long hours on that movie. And you know, Tommy comes and whips out these George Benson tapes at midnight, you know. And we're working on that from 12 to 5. And then I had to get out of town because the next day was the Super Bowl and the New York Giants were playing. So if I stayed later in the day, I'd never get a flight. So I had to get an early morning flight out back to New York to go and make a jingle on Monday morning. I was like, it was freaking crazy, you know. But Siesta, and then the interesting thing was that there's a song in it called Conchita, okay, which is no Miles or anything. It's just basically me and Marcus. That's it, because they needed more space on the album. And so in August of like 1987 or 88, it was. I'm trying to think. It could have been 87. I don't know, because there was the whole thing was fucked up with Siesta about getting it released. It almost never made it out because there was political issues going on and all of this shit, man, you know, until some agreement came. But then Marcus said, you know, hey man, you guys we got to come back in the studio, do 1 more song. Got an idea? I'll figure it out. You know, so we came in and he had an idea, and we spent like 14, 15 hours at my studio doing this track Conchita 8 months after this album was done. So I go, oh, back in Siesta mode. Okay, here we go. You know, but that track is phenomenal. Conchita Lament, it's called. Really, really good. And you know, I keep on saying that I don't think that album got the real due that it should have gotten. You know, because it was a soundtrack kind of, and it wasn't like a real Miles Davis album. But it was enough of a statement that people should have understood that this thing is really, really interesting. I say in my book, you know, one of the things that eased the pain was like, and I mean this in just like the most respectable of the best I can do, but you know, watching Ellen Barkin jumping around Spain naked the whole movie wasn't exactly a stretch on us, you know what I mean? But yeah, run that scene back. Okay, yeah, that one where she's laying in the pool naked over there. Yeah, okay, we'll work on. I mean, you know, there was like a little inside joke because you got to find that, or else you'll go crazy. You know what I mean? You know, because you keep on going over and over again and fixing and fixing and fixing and over and fixing, you know, for the end, for it to sound like one train of thought.
Yeah, and could you tell us, I know the people who watch my channel I want to know this. Can you tell us a little bit about Amanda as well? Because again, that was another leap forward in sound for me. And I always felt that had a lot more of a band sound to it.
Well, I do want to say, you know, and in all thing, man, you know, people need to buy my book.
Yeah, that's what. Don't worry, they'll be buying your book. You know, I'll make
because the story, you know, because the whole story of Amanda is there from start to end. I mean, the whole thing. You know, I'm telling you, but you know, the whole thing is that this time Miles was happy. It's a different thing, man. There's band politics all the time. You know, but you know, I know that you know when I was doing Tutu, the people were talking much shit. You know, who's this fucking Jason in there, man? Dude, where's the band? Band should be doing this. Well, you know, all of this shit. You know, some people were like cool, others I don't think were. You know, and there was a lot of work going on. Marcus took over, man. Yeah, he took over the album. You know, it's the farthest thing from the fucking truth there is. You see my language, but farthest thing from the truth, man. You know, that was Miles. I was there. You know, Miles. Maybe we should bring some of your guys in and everything. No, I don't want none of those guys. This is great. You know, this is what I want. Okay, end of that conversation. All of a sudden, around New York, and Marcus took over the record. He's the guy. He's the nobody even heard a note. You know what I mean? So, funny story about. But I'll tell you about a monologue. Funny story that there was a party for Tutu, a release party, and we were invited there, and it was at a place, and very cool people. Gil Evans was there. I met Gil. Miles introduced me to Gil and George Russell. Scritti Politti, Green and Gamson were there, and Tommy, and all these people. It was like one of those like, well, this is the fun part, you know what I mean? Well, making it is fun. Don't get me wrong, but it's another mindset of fun, This is the fun part, Miles walked around the room, and then he saw me, and he came over to give me a big hug and introduced me to Sicily, which I never met. And then he brings me over and introduced me to Gil Evans. Gil Evans is eating a pastrami sandwich, Gil, this is Jason Miles, man. He's the cat. I will shake Gil's hands, got freaking pastrami shit all over my hands. Oh, man, thank you very much. Nice meeting you, Gil, But anyway, Miles wanted to try guys in his band now. He was happy with some of the guys he had come across with some interesting people in his band. One of them was Kenny Garrett.
Incredible player.
Well, yes, and you heard it immediately that this is his new guy.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. This is Miles's new guy. And
Foley too. I think Foley was I saw Miles live.
Foley was very different. Foley was a different kind of cat, man. He was a definitely different kind of cat. That's the only thing you can say. You really don't know what he was or what he did, but he did something that was on his own unique thing. And then Ricky Wellman, he wanted that international, he wanted that go-go DC thing.
Yeah.
And Ricky knew how to do that, And then he changed around, and then didn't have guitar, then did have guitar, then all those other things. But the structure behind that was that it was a more focused orchestral album with a band and not reliant as much on the drum machine, although there are drum machine songs on it. Like
it's brilliantly integrated, that album is.
Yeah. JoJo's one of the great ones,
Yeah. You can't hear the join at all. You're aware it's there, but you can't hear the join. Unlike many albums of that period.
Hannibal certainly is a major tune, Yeah. And I remember I remember us sitting and listening to the middle of Hannibal, and Marcus looks over and me and Tommy goes, "Do you believe this guy played this shit?" Listen, and he's playing the solo. He's playing this stuff. He's just making the shit up on the spot. I'm going, whoa, and that's when Marcus decided I'm going to orchestrate that. The solo, I'm going to orchestrate it. That was a huge lesson for me, because I learned great stuff. You can do that, and I did that on my Grammy-nominated track called "Chasing Shadows" from Maximum Groove. I had Herb Alpert play on it, and I just saw Herb play. Man, I got me, James Genus, and Gene Lake. We're playing this great track. Do it, what you want to do, and he was loving it. And then when I listened back, I orchestrated all the synthesizers around the lines that he was playing me, and I learned that from that, and Marcus got that from Gil, so it's understanding that it needs to start somewhere, and it starts with the brilliance of the artist. And
I think George Russell did a lot of this. I've got some George Russell albums where he's taken Miles Davis solos and then orchestrated for almost a huge band that runs under Miles's solos, So those guys were pioneering. This is what Miles did, wasn't it? The line.
Miles was only as good. Miles was only as good as the people he surrounded himself with, and that's the lesson to be learned. When you surround yourself with people like that, bitches brew. Come on, it's so hard to figure that out. Jack DeJohnette, Dave Holland. Then he puts electric bass on Harvey Brooks. Then he's got Chick and Zawinul, Larry Young. Come on, then Wayne Shorter. If you can't get something from that whole thing, But then everybody leaves out what the catalyst was of all that, and that was Betty Mabry. Betty was the one that changed the direction. She told Miles, man, take off those suits and start getting with what's happening. And Miles, like I said, he's smart, man. He sees what's out there. He's got his ear to the ground. And the next thing you know, he's at the Fillmore East, and he's doing this. I mean, we're not going to see another Miles Davis. That's not going to happen, no matter who you talk to or what you're saying. He's great, or he's that, or he's Miles. Ain't going to happen. you just got to hope that in some ways, the people like myself and Marcus and Schofield and Bill Evans and that really were there with him, can see what he gave to us, to go and do this. And I think that I've honored I've honored the music by the albums that I've made that go and then represent that. This album I have, Miles to Miles, in the spirit of Miles Davis, made it in 2005. Michael Brecker was the one that got me to do that, because I sent him a track and he goes, Jay, Miles, man, Miles would love this stuff, man. You got to make a whole album like this. And I was like, really? Wow. I started thinking, okay. And I came up with things. It took me 5 years to get a deal for it, of course, because nobody, well, you don't know. Well, we're looking for the next Miles Davis, Yeah, good luck, buddy. You know what I mean? And when I was doing Celebrating the Musical Weather Report, nobody wants to hear Weather Report's music. How do you know? Nobody's been playing it for 15 years, man.
That's the problem with the industry, isn't it? Basically, there was a time when they didn't know, and they were, wanting to. They would take a bet. They were let musicians try and do stuff that was new, and the new stuff would, open up new avenues. Now everyone thinks they know. I really
right. Well, that's my problem. That's my problem. One of the best bass players in the world that I got a chance to work with, his name was Bob Babbitt, and he was the bass player for the Funk Brothers. And he said to me, Jason, what you do, man, I take my hat off. It's not easy. You innovate. Innovation takes a long time, and it's not a fun thing, but, you seem to get it out there and everything like that. And that's one of the reasons that brought me over here, was I don't think that I was given a chance over in the US to get the same kind of innovation that I wanted to do. And I think COVID did a lot with that. It did a lot. I mean, my whole thing is always in the spirit of, Miles looking for there. When I played at Ronnie Scott's, I got an incredible review from the Financial Times of London. It was just one of the great highlights of my life. We did a set that night that was off the freaking charts. Whenever there's a fucked up day involved of traveling, sometimes you have a good shot to do a great set that night, because you just want to get it out so much of the frustration. And one of the things that Mike Hobart wrote was about my one foot respecting in the past and the other foot planted in the future. And that's how, I always got to think. And when I came back to the United States and I brought these great reviews from Italy and Germany and all these places that I played with this group, we would just burn it all the time. And nobody seemed to care, that they didn't care, but they just want to know, well, how many seats were filled on the last gig over there? I'm going, well, I mean, and I've done all kinds of things where I played in front of 10 people, and then I played in front of 17,000 people, 20,000 in Rio, 15,000 in 12,000 in South Africa in Cape Town, and 17,000 at the Hollywood Bowl and everything. But it doesn't matter. The scene was changing in a different kind of way that I didn't think that I fit in, because of, if I wanted to play a jazz at Lincoln Center, I couldn't play a jazz at Lincoln Center because they don't have electric instruments there. San Francisco Jazz, I mean, I couldn't get, like a freaking phone call return. You know what I mean? Newport Jazz Festival, who are these people playing there? Why won't they go? And, and this isn't bitter or anything like that, because that's not me, but questioning, because I could have sat and been bitter, except I said, I'm going to do something about this. And what I'm going to do about it is that I'm going to move for a few different reasons. One is to better our lives for Kathy and I, because the United States is going freaking crazy. And the other is to see if I do have a legacy in other places. And coming over here, I realize I do have a legacy, and I do have something that people that respect the music a lot more than they do in the United States respect. There's a reason, you see great musicians. Like I see Randy Brecker, who I know Randy for freaking God knows how long. He's playing in Europe all the time because he can't make the same living in the US. Joe Lovano, these guys are great and they play, but they're much more respected over here. Joe's my neighbor in New York. He's a super sweet guy, and you see a lot of things. And so, it's it's not an easy groove, and the stories that I tell that come nonchalantly off my tongue, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, to get that. Or Kathy would say, what that album, you listen to that album, do you know how many hours he spent in his studio programming sounds that Luther used for that album? All the stuff, I heard him do all of the stuff, and then he comes in and he just whips it up, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, wow, that's really that's it. You know what I mean?
I really feel, and I've really tried to cover it on my channel, that in the 1980s suddenly there was this split in jazz, and you had the new Lions, Winter Marsalis, and all those guys, who were sort of pushing this sort of idea of classical jazz, acoustic jazz, and having to respect the form. And then there was still that spirit in jazz of other musicians who were actually honoring jazz by pushing the sounds forward and also pushing it into sort of avant-garde areas, but also into popular music areas. And an elitism and snobbery emerges at that point, which I think has actually marginalized a whole bunch of legendary musicians.
Absolutely. Well, one thing I was happy with is how I got across to many different musicians, how what I showed them, what I did, fit in their music. And a couple of things, first of all, when you talk about Tutu, you should go listen to the tune Escher's Sketch from Michael Brecker on Now You See It Now. Do you want to talk about a freaking epic piece of music? That was freaking epic. Doing that thing, it was like, Michael, well, there's a little problem. What? Well, we got 2 time signatures going on at the same time. Okay, and you see the mind and how we made that happen, and how that was a really important cut for him. That really went and propelled that album. But one of the most important ones to me was working with Joe Sample, who in the Crusaders, he didn't want synthesizer, he didn't want that, but Marcus was producing their album, and he went and he was producing their album, and he told Joe, "Don't worry, man, we got this together. And Joe came in, and man, from when I started working with him, he was a great friend to me, great mentor and friend, because he understood what I did. I brought my thing to their music. I didn't tell, well, this is how I do it. No, it's like, okay, well, listening to what he was talking about, and listen to what's said, and listen to them. And that album we did, Healing the Wounds, that's a really good album, man. A really good album. When the Crusaders were kind of like, maybe that their last gasp, but we left them with something really good and some really good music. And, you kind of see, well, the musicians adjusted to me. What did they do? And yeah, they adjusted to the way that I work because they wanted me to bring something to their music.
Can you tell us a little bit about working with Michael Jackson?
Well, first of all, it was working on a Michael Jackson album, not working with Michael Jackson, although he was in there from the beginning, to the whole thing. But what happened was basically I wasn't doing any more sessions. All my stuff was in my studio in my new house that I got, house Luther Vandross helped us build, in my career up to that point, because we were all doing very, very, very well. The business was thriving. We were making a lot of money, really. It was out there, And so I got a very cool little house, nice house. So it was just perfect. And upstate, 50 miles from New York. And I had all my gear there, everything, setting up my studio, so I could do productions and everything. And what happened was that I had a call one night. I was producing this artist named Nana Mouskouri from Greece. Crazy.
Everybody. I don't know if you're going to have to come back. We're going to have to get you back on, Jason, because there's so much I want to talk to you about.
Crazy story. But anyway, the Michael Jackson. So anyway, she's on the way up to my house from Switzerland, and I get a call from this guy, Brad Buxner. Says, hi, I'm calling this guy, Rex Rideout, gave me your phone number down at the Hit Factory. Hey, what's going on, man? I'm Michael Jackson's musical director. Okay. And he goes, we're doing this song. I need this thing. Everybody tells me you're the guy that could pull this together. I said, okay, yes. I'd be very happy to be honored. Michael Jackson, that's fantastic. Thank you. He goes, sure. So can you be down here in a few hours? And I said, oh, no, I got somebody coming over to my house to work with me. Just flew in. Okay, well, this is a Michael Jackson album. I go, I respect that, but I also respect the fact that I'm producing an artist that's flown in from Europe that's coming over to my house right now. And You think I'm just going to bail on this? This is what I do now. This is what I'm going for, being a producer. I'm sorry if I miss this. He goes, well, I'm going to have to get somebody to do this. We need this part done now, blah, 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 blah. Go, okay. And he tells me he's going to call this guy and everything like that. And the minute he mentioned the guy's name, I said, he's very capable, you know, good keyboard player. But I said this to myself, but he ain't getting it. No way. He's not that imaginative. You know, good, very good, but not that imagine meat potatoes kind of guy, you know. But so okay, so he says, well, you know, I said, no, I missed Michael Jackson's album, man. I'll regret it, but I have to have principles. Okay, so the next day, like about 11 o'clock in the morning, the phone rings, and oh, hey, Jason, it's Brad Buxner. Brad, what's going on, man? What's going on? He goes, so when can you make it in? I said, when do you want me to make it in, man? I'm cool the next few days. And he goes, can you come tomorrow? I go, I'll be there tomorrow. Oh, great, man. You know, I figured, okay, it didn't work out with, you know, this cat. So I come in the next day. I brought a few keyboards with me in my MPC because I like to, at that point, I like to go and sync off the MPC and to have the opportunity to put drums or other kind of synthetic pads and everything, depending on what they needed. And he told me what they were looking for. And they had like freaking stadium speakers, man, blowing the shit out at like 11, you know what I mean? Now, first of all, man, turn that shit, turn it down, man. Come on, you know what I mean? Michael wasn't there, but he was at the hotel or some shit, you know? And Brad was telling me what they were looking for. And they were looking for this kind of middle of this song called They Don't Really Care About Us, where the whole thing was going to blow into some huge cacophony, man, some big sound, big with all this chaos and shit going on. And, you know, what's the story? I said, okay, leave me alone for a little while and let's see what happens. So they had like 50 synthesizers in the room. So I connected a few ones together that I thought I could use. And the one thing that people don't realize is that when I do synthesizers and I build a sound, I start from the bottom up. You know what I mean? But I start from like small to build it up into something that all of a sudden, you know, has the depth that is needed. Where some people start going, one, you know, like, and Luther would always say, how come your stuff doesn't sound like a big accordion? You know, because I know what I'm doing, I hope, you know. So I go in there and I start to build this thing up. And then I had one idea of not placing a sample and scaling it, of just leaving it on the keyboard in the spot that it was sampled, and then have it play all kinds of weird shit as the other stuff is going on. Because that's what I kind of heard in it. And about 2.5 hours later, 3 hours later, I just want to make sure I got it. I said, all right, come downstairs. See what happens. Comes downstairs, sitting back there. Oh, okay, let's see what this guy got. Well, you know, by sitting there, okay, let's see what he's got. You know, New York guy, you know. Turns around and goes, I don't know what you did, man, but it's pretty cool. I said, okay, but let's record it. So they recorded it, and Michael calls up, you know, hang on. He says, no, Jason Miles, I think this guy got something over here. So Michael, oh, great. So then they asked me, you know, well, how much money do you want? This is a good one. So how much money do I want? He said, yeah, I want $5,000. They go, $5,000? What are you, crazy? I said, do you ask me how much I want? You know, what am I going to tell you? I want $1. You know what I mean? So they gave me a very nice payday. It was very nice. You know, I was happy. It wasn't $5,000, but it was, you know, okay, cool. Well, I'm happy. And then 6 months later, I'm at the Hit Factory doing something there. I forgot what it was. And some guy walks in and sees me at the board, and he goes to me, hey, Jason Miles on Michael Jackson's album. And I'm going, right. He goes, yeah, man, I was there when they were doing that song, man. And they put up all these different things, and they put up the part in the middle, and Michael was like, that's great. Who's that? And he goes, that's what I did with Jason Miles. And he goes, yeah, I like that, you know. So you were on Michael Jackson's album. I was like, all right. So then the album comes out, and I actually hear, well, you know, okay. They mix it kind of like all trippy and everything like that. So, you know, I said, okay, they were able to work on it. But what happened was about a year later, I'm looking outside my door just one day, and it's like a box there. And a box, what's going on? I open up the box, and there is like an 11 selling platinum disc. One second. Hold on a second. Have it in my living room. He sends me an 11 million platinum disc.
11 million.
Yeah, there it is.
Wow.
Just so you know, my name's on there, so you can see. Oh, he stole it from somebody, you know. So he sent me that, and I was like, "That's pretty classy, man. You know, that's pretty classy." So that's Michael Jackson in a nutshell, and that was.
You have so many stories. I know the people watching this video will want to know more of these stories. And of course, they really need to go out and check your book,
Yeah,
so I will put the
it's
link
on.
in below. And and also your discography. How many albums have you made? Because you really explore your legacy on those albums, don't you?
Well, many of them from I'd say from like 1995 on, all the albums that I did. I worked with produced different people. Look, Gato Barbieri is one of the great saxophone players, and I always wanted to produce Gato. And everybody said he's got no gas left in the tank. And I said, I think it's bullshit, man. And I got him a deal, and we made this wonderful album, The Shadow of the Cat, when he was 70. Which actually I'm older than him when we made that now. Shadow of the Cat. And they've got Billboard Latin Jazz Album of the Year. We got a Latin Grammy nomination. So, not only I feel like with the projects that I put together, like, I created this group Global Noise with DJ Logic that we made a groundbreaking album in 2008 that was just fantastic. It was typical record company bullshit, it was that great album with all these the cutting edge people, Michelle Ndegeocello, Vernon Reed. I mean, all of these really great people, man, that were on it. Bernie Worrell. We toured around and everything, but I also learned that, like, I can't be involved with other people now. They're not ready to hang with the vision. The same thing with my Kind of New project that I did with Ingrid Jensen. I thought that we could build it, but the artists, they don't know how to go and hang to build it. If it's not like going like that, they go. With me, I say, look at this. Look what happened with this. We need to keep on building up and building up, because when you do, and you see that eventually it starts to click when you got there, but you have to have the patience, and very few artists have the patience to make all that happen. And that's what I learned when the Yvonne Lynn's album I did. It took me 8 years to get a deal for that. Everybody thought I was crazy. Crazy. No, tell me about this album anymore. Record company, leave me alone with that. I don't want to hear about it. Finally, I get the moment for it to happen. And what happens? I go for the gusto and I call Sting. And he sings this great song that anchored the album, and boom, there it is. And everybody goes, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? Excuse me. You know what I mean? You questioned me back then, and now you want to know how I did it?
What was it like working with Sting?
It was easy, not a big deal. I mean, not a thing to say, man. Hey, man, what's happening? What's going on? Hey, talk about Brazilian music and Yvonne and hanging for the night and doing the vocal and how happy he was, such a gentleman to my wife and everything like that. And said, hey, yeah, this is going to be great, man. And when I needed him, he was there.
He's a consummate musician, isn't he?
Truly Renaissance artist, and did one of his best vocals ever, I think, on "She Walks This Earth" with a Michael Brecker solo. And I learned something from that also when we did that, and Michael played the solo on it. And I thought the solo was amazing. And he said to me, we can't use this solo. And I go, what? And he goes, no, it's a jazz solo. This is a pop hit, man. This is a pop song. I got to craft the solo. And he created this beautiful, just pop solo. And you start to realizing people think it's easy, but it's not, to crafting the pop stuff. And that's why these Luther Vandross albums and everything took months and months to make, because it's not easy to craft pop music.
No, people don't get it. I've filmed a video yesterday on Kenny G. I've gone through his discography because I think all this Kenny G hates, it's ridiculous, really, because he is not Ornette Coleman, he's not Coltrane, but he knows how to sell records, and that has to be respected,
Well, it is. I don't think it was so much the music Kenny was playing as the personality that he was. You know what I mean? And that's what it is. You know what I mean? But because there were other guys playing this shit. Grover Washington Jr., really? Come on, Grover was a dear friend, man. But who's saying anything bad about Grover? You know what I mean? Because Grover didn't come off the way like somebody like Kenny did. You know what I mean? A little too showmany, a little too this.
But I also think that the thing that what Grover Washington didn't do was sell 75 million albums. I mean, there's one point when Kenny G was doing around about 17 million sales on each album.
Well, the whole thing is Kenny G convinced people that it was jazz when it wasn't jazz. It's the best jazz album, Kenny G. You know what I mean? Okay, you know what I mean? But he had a sound, and that sound fit in the environment at the right time. My friend was sitting at a record company, and my friend Jay Beckenstein from Spyro Gyra, he told me, so we had a record company looking for a deal. and he put on the new demos, and the record company president goes, hold on a second. He turned it way down, listening to the music, and he goes, we got to turn it up. He goes, no, this is how they have to listen to it in the office. So we have to make sure that it comes across like that. I'm going, look at this. My freaking music is now relegated to being played just in elevator. That's how they come with elevator music and all of that shit. But it's the truth. Even the elevator music. Well, how long is an elevator ride? Like 30 seconds? You know what I mean? Up, down, you know. But in my book also, I do have a pretty scathing chapter on smooth jazz. So that's something else to talk, because to me, I kept on saying that, there was contemporary jazz, which was great. We had Pat Metheny and Crusaders, and Pat's music was mainstream, and that's about as beautiful music as anybody can get. Albums, Still Life Talking, Letters from Home, man, come on, you know what I mean? But Crusaders, Street Life, Bob James, all that stuff, man. But they went and they had to take it another step, you know what I mean? Like, and then get rid of all these artists, and then create this group of artists that some of them were excellent, but realized that's what they had to play, or if they weren't going to make any money. And then some of them that just thought, oh, I can play that without even having to learn that much, And they created this kind of thing that hasn't grown in 20 years. The only music that actually has not made progress in 20 years. Jazz is growing always, whether you like it or you don't. Whether you like what this guy plays or don't like. There's always something churning in there, whether I like it or not. Do I like the current direction? I'm not crazy about losing the essence of the melodies, which is so important. Who's writing great melodic content, But I'm always into, seeing, okay, they're doing that. And can you take what you're doing and turn it into something? A few people can, but many people can't. And they're getting recognized for it, even though, to me, there's no reason why they should be getting recognized for it. It's political. I see.
That's exactly it. And I really try and get into the politics there. I think there's a lot of stuff going on at the moment, and it's because of the way the industry's gone over the last 10 15 years.
What industry?
Exactly.
Anyway, my new track is coming out on Spotify. You and 100,000 other people tomorrow. But see, when I do something, I want to give an artist a character, so their music will last a long time, and it won't be just something trendy in the moment. I try to give people stuff that's got meat on the bones, and that's what you learn from mentoring and getting people to teach you and all this other stuff.
I think that the most exciting thing for me is precisely what we're doing now, because we're talking about the music, and there's loads of people out there that are interested in the music. And I've been a musician all my life, and I've always been aware of the sales that I've got and trying to work with record labels. Then I look at this YouTube I'm doing, and I look at the numbers, and I'm talking about some very esoteric stuff, really, but the numbers are big. And so it starts here, and then the fact that you're not just making albums, you're writing books now. And I'm sure the people watching this will go over and check your books out. It'll all be in the links will all be down there below, because what you've done and what you're doing right now is groundbreaking. And that's a lonely place to be. That's a lonely place to be.
Can I bring my wife in here, man, so she can know that?
without a doubt.
They can look at me and tell me, we're doing the garbage right now. Would you come downstairs and help me bring the garbage, please? Or, let's go. And they think it's like, somebody told me, I used to live on the Upper West Side in the 70s when Miles was retiring. I saw Miles, man. He would go outside and bring his laundry over to the laundromat and everything over there. You do have a life. And one of the things in Portugal here was that I wanted to have a life. I want to enjoy life. I don't want to be on the road for 6 weeks. I want to do things that make sense and that are important, that I can spread the word and do master classes and do something and give information to people that really want it, not just like, what's going on in the US, which is, education by notes and numbers and cut and paste and all this other shit that has got, I keep on saying this. So the first song that I open up my set with sometimes, it's a tune called Cactus by Don Grolnick. And the first song I heard when I walked into the club McKell's in 1974. And that vibe that you felt that came to you, man, for being in that place and watching those guys. I'm just trying to go that there's a place to grow from there, and I want younger people to try to go there, man, because it works. It works. And if you just go and put your head on it, man, and understand what it is. I say this to people, Bill Evans. They said to Bill Evans, hey, do you ever play for fun? Oh yeah, I play for fun all the time. Really, what do you play? I play show tunes. Really? And then you listen to those tunes, like I'm working on this thing right now that I hear Bill just dissect it. I'm gonna love you like nobody's loved you, come rain or come shine. My mother listened to that tune, but then I hear him like Bill Evans doing it. Wow, man, that is the freaking hippest shit. You know what I mean? By holy mackerel, man. And you kind of see, that in order to get to that place, you need a great melody. You just can't create notes, man. It's got to go somewhere. It's got to have something. Tutu went the that melody's going to stay around forever, man.
It seems like looking at what's going on in jazz now, you have that whole jazz is classical music, so we can get loads of funding for that, because we're Jazz at the Lincoln Center. You got Winton there with his $1.5 million salary every year to do that sort of very worthy stuff. Then you've got the virtuoso stuff, which is people on Instagram just blurring out notes all over the place and impressing people.
I love those people because they have no idea what they're really doing. They just know, I can play fast. And by the way, I can also play over an existing track that's a hit record already and show you that I can play that bass line also. What is that?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
It's
but
that.
I'll tell you, man.
And then you've got absolute legends. I'm interviewing Scott Henderson next week, and for me, he's one of the greatest living guitarists on the planet. Yeah. And I think, what's the support for him? What big funding body does he go to support the art he's doing? What is there for him? And does he go onto Instagram and start doing all these? How does an artist like that keep going? And he does keep going. He releases his own CDs, he organizes his own tours and all this type of stuff. And I'm thinking, but people have it's not people. There's an audience for him, and he has to get to it. But the problem is, the industry doesn't understand that worth, because I really believe music has legs. And
it does.
Last week I interviewed Michael Visegli, who's the bass player for Suzanne Vega. And Suzanne Vega, they didn't expect her to be sell millions of records. She's like this little, obscure singer-songwriter. They put that track out in the 1980s and it sold millions. She hasn't got a deal now. She's got an audience. And I said to him, I said, if the industry had a song like Luca, which is a great song, great melody, great story, and stuck it out there, people will still respond to it, but they won't do it because they've bought into this idea that everyone's got an attention span of, 20 seconds or something. And not everybody has.
Well, exactly. And you see the people that have adjusted, the great pop producers like Max Martin, who wrote great shit, but now all of a sudden he's reduced to going and doing, these kind of records now, that you see. All the music is being controlled by just a few people. And,
that's what people don't understand. There's been deals done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, please. It's all it's all, factory and pop and in jazz also. You want to hear Winton, man? The one thing I love about here, and I have to go on a few, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The one thing I love about here is we have the Stingray Jazz on TV. And I've seen all these amazing videos, man. All these from you don't get that in the U.S. But I saw Winton with his black coats from the Underground
Incredible
band, and I'm like, what happened? You were right on the cusp. I mean, this is the great quintet shit you got going on over here. You know what I mean? But and all of a sudden, now it's like, well, that jazz doesn't exist before 1959.
I don't. With Winton, I got told off because his brother Jason Marsalis contacted me. We had a big talk. You should watch that interview. And I got to be honest, Winton, as time has gone on, he's opened up and he's into all sorts of stuff. And Jason was telling me about how he rang up Branford Marsalis when he went to music college. He goes, "Have you heard this album, Romantic Warrior by Return to Forever?" And Branford goes, "Yeah, of course I have. It's incredible." So this is political. This is political.
Oh,
yeah. Everybody knows really what's gone on here. Everybody knows the importance
of course, but it's still about. It's still about this. It's still about what fulfills you when you're done at the end. You know what I mean? Can you walk out of there and say, okay, man, okay, I made that. That was cool, you know. And look at like Marcus, how much touring he does, man. He's every freaking place, you know. But I still believe he really likes to do it, and still wants to get the music out there, you know. And I respect that. I just don't know, you know. Like I think that the message. Well, we can get into a whole other thing about college and universities and what they're teaching these kids and how, you know, people I learned from this, you know, so much. Even though I learned how to do music, I still learned everything from the street.
From the
You know,
street. That's what jazz was, and it was a transformative.
even music, even production. You know, the great Ralph McDonald, man. You know what I mean? And people like that. Ralph used to play on my gigs. I did this show called The Grover with Love, and we did all of the cool Grover stuff from back in the early '70s and everything. And Ralph was playing. Did a number of gigs. I brought him to Japan. That we did. You know, it's really cool. And we brought that music there, man, the way that it should be presented. And don't discount it. The young people discount the music of the past too easily. And
there's people watching this channel and they love the music, and it's quite incredible. And I'm so pleased for you to being able to come on and tell your story. So everybody watching, give Jason a round of applause for that. Was incredible. And he's got a brilliant website. It's all there. So if you want to check out the links in there, I'll put it all down below. But just go over to his website, delve into his own albums, delve into his books, go and buy some stuff, support the guy, and you know, get involved in this story. And Jason, thanks for doing that. It was really brilliant.
So one thing, you know, when I was in the United States and I had the book, I sold a lot of books and autographed them for people, you know, in the hundreds, you know what I mean? But I couldn't do it in Europe. But now that I'm in Europe, if you live in Europe and you'd like an autographed copy, it's much easier for me to send it to places in Europe. So you can go to my website and contact me, and I can get you an autographed copy if you'd like that too. Or else you can get it on Amazon. And all my shit's on Spotify and everything. It's all for free anyway.
Do it for free. I have been.
You know, I mean, you know, what are you gonna say? You know what I mean? But except that, you know, I have a new book coming. Hopefully next year it will be out there. And I'll give you a little tip, just give you a little exclusive. It's called Journey to the Center of My Life in the Music Business. So that's the new one. And thank you, man, for having me on. It was really good talking.
And will you come back when the new book comes out, and we'll push your book? We'll push your book hard.
I like talking to people that really want to probe the situation.
I feel I've just scratched the surface. I've got to be honest. It's your career. It's like the names that you've come out with, all my heroes. Just like, oh my God, this. I mean, you're just mentioning Ralph McDonald, incredible percussionist. Wrote Just the Two of Us, you know.
Mr. Magic. Mr. Magic, he wrote also. You know,
incredible.
What a character he was. Ralph was a very interesting character, but he helped launch a lot of people's careers, man.
He did. I was really
Marcus Miller, especially too. He gave Marcus a huge shot, you know. So I mean, yeah, they're out there, man. Well, look, namaste.
Namaste to you, Jason. And, thank you for doing that. It's been absolutely
Feliz Año Nuevo to everybody. Happy New Year. And you know, stay healthy, man, because that's the key to everything.